Dear audience, hello and welcome back in this video, which is part 1 of a series of videos that we will cover the topic related to the hazards, risks, and issues in electrical installations. So this first video will be just an introductory video in which we are going to explain the terms and the differences related to the meanings of or interpretation of hazards, risks, and issues. So all of these three terms relate to a potential problem or a potential list of problems, but in fact they occupy distinct stages in the life cycle of the project, and those problems have also distinct meanings in the safety and project management context. We'll try to break down their key differences and also highlight some examples related to electrical installation. So, as I mentioned before, we'll just start by defining these terms and give some examples. So, the first term is hazard. What's a hazard? A hazard is a potential source of harm or something that has the ability to cause damage or injury. It's the raw material for both risks and issues. So, in a simple sense, we can think of a hazard as being the seed from which the risk and issues can grow. What does this mean? This means that if we are fully able to control hazards, then there'll be no expected risks and there'll be no expected issues. In the real life applications, this is unfortunately almost impossible. So what we try to do is to apply as much as possible some control measures to control the hazards, so for the hazards not to grow into risks. And then, as we'll see later, we will try to also anticipate the risks and have some risk response plans so that we'll be able to control these risks or limit the impact of the risks when they arise. Some examples for hazards are unlabeled electrical wires. So wires with no labels. This is a potential risk which can lead to this is a potential hazard which can lead to a long list of risks. Another example is an open pit on a construction site. Okay, a pit which has not been closed or not properly closed, okay, so that people might fall or even equipment might fall in that pit if it's a big pit. A driver texting while driving is an example of a potential hazard which can be transformed into a risk. Then the second term we'll be discussing is the risk. What's the definition of a risk? It's the likelihood of occurring or a likelihood of harm occurring from a hazard. So if the hazard is not properly controlled, then most probably it would be transformed or translated into a risk. So along with the severity of the potential consequences. This means that the risk has two factors that we have to discuss. One factor is the likelihood or the probability, okay, of happening, and then the other factor is the severity or impact, how much severe and what would be the impact of the risk if it really happens. So it's a combination of hazard and its potential outcome. So risk is just a combination of these two things, the hazard and the potential outcome of the hazard. So we can think of it as the potential for the hazard to materialize and cause harm. Certainly, a hazard will materialize and cause harm if not properly controlled. Some examples: someone getting electrocuted from the unlabeled wires, which you have seen before as being some sort of hazard. Okay, so if this hazard is not controlled, then the hazard of unlabeled wires, it will cause some problems. One of them is the electrocution, or someone getting electrocuted. Okay, so this is a sort of a risk. Another example of a risk is a worker falling into the open pit on the construction site and getting injured. Another example is a driver causing an accident with texting because of the problem or the hazard of texting while driving. Then a potential risk would be that this driver would be causing an accident, potentially injuring themselves or others, or causing some damage for the property or equipment. The last term is the issue. What's an issue? It's an actual event or condition that has already negatively impacted the project's objectives. It is the realized consequence of hazard or risk. So what happens actually is that if hazard is not properly controlled, or a list of hazards are not properly controlled, they'll transform into risk, and this risk will, if not also mitigated, or if we don't respond to a risk or a list of risks, then they will materialize into an actual event or a condition, okay, that will negatively impact the project objectives. So we can think of it as the actual harm caused by the hazard or risk materializing. So now we can see that the main difference between an issue and a risk is that a risk is something that we might think of in the future that might happen. We are not sure. There is some sort of uncertainty. But an issue is something factual, something that has happened, or something is happening that's happening now. Okay, this is an issue. Examples: the actual accident of someone getting electrocuted from the unlabeled wires. Okay, you can imagine now how the sequence goes. First, the problem was a hazard of unlabeled wires. Then the risk originating from that hazard, as anticipated, is that someone gets electrocuted. But then if this happens or takes place or comes into reality, then this is an issue. Another issue would be, another example would be a worker actually falling into the open pit on the construction site and sustaining injuries. Actual injury, actual harm. A third example, the actual accident caused by the driver texting while driving. So this is not something to anticipate or expect. It's something that really happened. When it comes to the key differences, focus, we can focus like this. Hazard focuses on the inherent potential to cause harm, okay, and the risk focuses on the likelihood and impact of that harm actually happening. So it's still some likelihood, something we anticipate, something we are not certain of, and we have the chance to plan for its mitigation, to prevent it from happening, or at least if happens to reduce the impact or severity of that risk. But an issue focuses on the actual harm that has already occurred. When we talk about actionable, we say that hazards necessitate awareness and potential mitigation to prevent them from causing risks, while risks require proactive identification, assessment, and mitigation plans before they materialize as issues. So we start action here, the hazards. Then we continue with planning and also identification, assessment, and mitigation plans for the risks. We'll talk into more details actually about each one of them in some separate lectures, part 2, 3, and 4 most probably. So most probably we'll cover all of this in 4 videos, so 3 more videos. Issues demand immediate action and resolution to minimize their impact on the project. So we have to take some action immediately. And certainly when it comes to issues, we have to include the issues in the issue log. And this issue log will be a part of our lessons learned from the project. So some examples: while a wet floor is a hazard, the risk depends on factors like foot traffic and presence of warning signs. So a wet floor is a hazard, but sometimes it's something that we cannot prevent. We have to deal with, okay? But then how to deal with? We have to identify the risks and check how to deal with such a hazard, like probably using like safety shoes, have some warning signs, okay, something like this. Similarly, texting while driving is a hazard, but the risk of an accident depends on traffic conditions and individual behavior. So if the traffic condition is high, I mean we have a high traffic, then probability of the risk would be high, and if slow, then it's slow. Again, the individual behavior, like how they behave while walking or moving into the site. Okay, do they follow the signboards? Do they take care while crossing the roads and like this, or moving from one point to the other? So it depends. So in conclusion, we can say that understanding the difference between hazards, risks, and issues is crucial for effective project management. We have to know the differences between these three. And by actively managing hazards, proactively mitigating risks, and promptly resolving issues, you can see the difference. Okay, here we can see that actively managing when it's related to hazards, and proactively mitigating when it comes to risk, and then promptly resolving issues. Okay, we can significantly improve project safety, success rates, and minimize negative consequences. So this is very important. If we know the difference between the three, and if we start from the identification of hazards, proper identification of hazards, and proper control strategies for hazards, and then proactively assessing the risks and planning for some mitigation strategies, then most probably will prevent most of the issues. Despite, we have to also be prepared to promptly taking action against issues that might arise or take place in the at site while working, so as to minimize the negative consequences of all of three of them: hazards, risks, and issues. Thank you for being attentive, and I hope that was informative, and see you soon in the next lecture or part 2. For similar material, please do subscribe to my channel on YouTube. Okay, AGHA Academy at AGHA Academy. Okay, also do comment. I'd be glad to hear from you, and your feedback is very, very important for me for planning the next lectures and for the improvement of the material delivered. Again, thank you, and see you next time.